Welcome back to the fourth of my videos on supplemental starting material for the Lost Mine of Phandelver, the starter dungeon for 5th Ed, which is great. If you are not aware of it, it's worth picking up a copy, and feel free to jump back and see the other couple of videos that I've done on how I tweak that campaign to get it started. So today I am doing the last of the little bits of supplemental introductory information that I did for this campaign, and I'm giving the plot hook that I did specifically for one other of the characters. I've already done one. This one was a gnomish tinkerer. Now, it actually started off as a sort of a customized fighter class, but then when we got access to the rules for the artificer, we sort of retconned it back into an artificer, but it's not significant. You just know that the idea here is this is a gnomish device gadget builder, and that's the brief we were coming in. He was a bit of a mad scientist character, and again, I wanted to bring him into this story in such a way that he's really invested in what happens here. This isn't just a matter of 10 gold. This is a matter of something much bigger at stake, and I really want to be part of this plan. So, once again, this is a player I knew very well and had a very good rapport with, and they were quite aware that even though I was technically writing background for their character, they had complete right of reply. They could say, I'm not happy with that, I want to alter it. But it was just sort of to introduce them to the themes and kind of say, this is why you're invested. So, what I wrote them was this. You didn't really need Gundren to tell you the history of Wave Echo Cave. I mean, you weren't going to tell him so, but every tinkerer worth anything remembered that name. You could have quoted the history back to him before he told it. Now, you liked the Rock Seekers. They liked innovation, which was weird for dwarves. Gundren himself had backed no less than 5 of your personal innovations, and although 4 of them had yet to find the right appreciative audience, your little shoehorn device had been a surprise hit with petty nobles, and had almost allowed Gundren to make his money back at this point. You'd probably have been willing to help Gundren out just because you liked him. And he'd asked. But that isn't the real reason you want a stake in this. The dwarves and the elves and the humans had always been obsessed about the Forge of Spells. The gnomes of Phandelver Mine had happily let them build their little enchanted trinkets and then quietly gotten on with the real work. Since the long night, gnomes have been little more than tinkerers and toy makers. Everyone knows it. Working off pure brain power can produce some marvellous innovations, but only the simplest ones had lasting impact. Anything more clever and complex always ends up breaking. Cogs catch, springs come loose, wire breaks, and there's only so much cleverness you can work into clockwork. Nothing had been the same since they'd lost the Animus engines. The Animus was the literal heart and soul of gnomish invention. A machine with an Animus at its core could adjust itself to improve how it worked. It could repair parts of itself that broke or came loose. It could think. It also brought control to the most powerful and clever machines, preventing disasters like the Winding Apocalypse or the Clockwork Horrors from ever happening again. There were little glowing mechanical spheres that made the impossible only difficult. And the engines that made them were the most valuable devices in the gnome world. When the long night had fallen, the gnomish domains across the Forgotten Realms had possessed 11 Animus engines, and one by one, each one had fallen and been destroyed in a spectacular and irrevocable fashion. One was torn apart and carted off as food for legions of crystalline insects. Another melted into magma by a monstrous ancient dragon, and one eaten and digested by the surrounding mountain, brought horribly to life for one day. All had very decisively met their end in the long night. And as the gnomish domains were crushed and their people scattered, all record of their construction had been lost. The animus engines were all long gone. Well, gnomes always added. I mean, almost all. I mean, there was that one engine that disappeared a few years before the long night. It got buried in a cave collapse and the entrance was lost. In theory, that one could still work, if anyone knew where it was. What was that place called again? Oh yeah, Phandelver Mine in Wave Echo Cave. I mean, it was only a mid-range animus engine, so it couldn't produce greater or mythic grade animus cores, and if it was damaged it might not be capable of making much more than a micro animus until it was fixed. So no one was going to be building crawler fortresses or clock titans anymore, but imagine to create a group of warforged warriors, or even just a coghound. And if you could figure out how it worked, a 100th share Gundren was offering. Yeah, that sounds like it should do nicely. And you already know exactly which 100th you're going to want. Now, there's a bunch of reasons that I really enjoyed this one. One, I love, as an author, I love throwing in those little hints of something bigger that everyone's like, oh, what's that? So I know nowhere do I explain what a clock titan is, but I mean, you can guess just by the sound of the name, and it sounds kind of epic. And we've suddenly got this element here of the gnomes as this fallen people, and this sudden piece of the puzzle that, quite apart from any issues of getting money for it or allegiance to the rock seekers, there's this thing of, I can find a thing here which makes the gnomes a race again, makes them an empire again, and also gives me this nice little potential hook for, do I want to introduce Warforged into this world? Is this something that you can't make them at the moment, although maybe you find ones buried, old gnomish engines in mines and in forgotten corners? In this campaign, we actually did have one. I called them a Forgeborn, but we had effectively a Warforged that the Rock Seekers had dug out of the mine initially and had brought to Neverwinter to try and see if they could get it working, and it ended up becoming one of the PCs. So there's this element of, can you tie together these bits and pieces of D&D lore and this long night story that you've got with what the PCs want to do with their characters and stuff. So, but I really love just the opportunity to say, you not only have an interest in these people, you not only have an interest in the money and the wealth that comes, this means everything to your people. And you're the only one who knows how significant it is. It's when someone says Wave Echo Cave, everyone goes, oh, that sounds good. And you've got to go. So yes, that was the brief for our Gnomish Tinkerer. Now, once again, they had right of reply, and we wrote supplemental fiction of them finding the Warforged device and their reaction to that. And that introduced this long character development thing between those two characters. But it was just a way to say, how do I invest my characters in this story? How do I get them wanting to be part of things, wanting to rescue the Rock Seekers and wanting this town and this mine to thrive? So, yeah. So those were the bits and pieces that I was doing as we were starting up the campaign. So once again, if you have thoughts, if people want to pinch ideas, they're welcome to, but to think about how can I tweak stuff, how can I do things in my set campaigns that give it flavour, give it interest, and draw the PCs in and hook them really easily. So yeah, if you have thoughts, if you have discussion pieces, if you have things that haven't worked yourself, then feel free to chip them into the comments. I'd love to hear. So thanks for listening.